What are we talking about with the stages of life? What is the model that is the stages of life that went into what is now a 10 session seminar?
This is a kind of a model of models. It is an abstraction. If you look along the bottom of the slide there, you'll see numbers, and those are ages in 7-year increments. Okay? The color bar above that time scale are the colors of spiral dynamics to give a sense of if a person was developing freely and life conditions didn't inhibit their development, those particular points of view would naturally arise in that person's consciousness and be expressing through that person. What happens to most folks is that they get stuck in circumstances where they can't develop past a certain point, or life conditions inhibit them in some other way. So the first is infancy, right? 7 years later, they're now capable of rational thought. And then about another 7 years or so, plus or minus a few years, people go through this shift from childhood to adolescence. And not just physically, but psychologically and cognitively. Then there's this move from adolescence to beginning adulthood, what we'll call adult 1.0, which is actually an adolescent's view of what adulthood looks like. Around 21-ish, in psychological terms, we talk about the early adult transition. I got to actually pull this off myself. I got to show up at work on time. I actually have to deliver results that they want me to deliver at work. So that's adulting 1.0. Around 28. Adult 2.0. There's an imperative. I'm not trying out being an independent person. I'm now starting to become an interdependent person. Like I'm going to partner with somebody and we're going to build something together. Or I'm going to start a company and we're going to build something as a team together, right? You start actually being an adult, having what adults have, like a mortgage or a car payment, or I think I need to get some adult furniture. And then around 35, you're examining how far you've gotten, right? Who I am is how I'm perceived by others. And am I driving the right car? Should I buy a new Apple Watch? It's like, is our house big enough, right? And then once you get through that, now I can be a member of a community and lead others in the community. Let's give back. Or you double down on the adult 2.0 agenda, which is, by God, I'm going to be a millionaire. So that's where most people wind up in life.
The question I have too is this doesn't necessarily always go in a linear fashion for people, right?
Yeah, except, for instance, so in my adult 1.0 space, what I was looking for is something that was bigger than me that I could join with, that would solve the existential terror of not knowing what the future was or what life is about. So I was working on adopting values and ways of being that were appropriate to 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds.
But Gabe, right? I think you and I spoke about this before. I was on a similar trajectory. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, consider that you and I were probably doing that from the point of view of the values of someone in adult 1.0.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
Quite different from actually being that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
75 years old and you've meditated for 60 years. It's just that when you adopt it as an adult 1.0 person, you take it on like it's like an ideology, and you're right about it, and you make other people wrong when they don't agree with you. And of course, you fail miserably at getting them involved because they just think you're an argumentative, closed-minded person, instead of someone who actually is gracious with everyone. So it's possible to adopt something that actually doesn't belong in that and turn it into the rules, for instance.
For most people, they'll most likely find themselves in what you've been talking about in the adult 1, 2, or 3.0 stages. Can you talk about what's my project if I notice I'm turning everything into the truth, I notice I'm resonating too much with the adult 1.0, and it might be time for me to move up to these more sophisticated levels.
You got to be careful, because people will turn this into steps of a ladder, and it doesn't actually work that way. As you grow and mature, you include the earlier stage or stages. It's like when you go from childhood to adolescence. It's like childhood plus, right? Plus all the layers that get added when you become an adolescent, and the same thing for each layer. So, for instance, if someone happens to be very embedded in adult 1.0 consciousness, they'll probably bump into things that don't work. Like they keep trying to make something happen in life. Like, why can't I get ahead? I'm working really hard on obeying all the rules, and I keep getting stuck with a $36,000 job and no appreciation, right? So at that point, it starts to dawn on you, maybe the way I'm behaving and thinking isn't giving me the advantages that other people around me, my competitors, are having. But now that said, if you're in a community where everyone around you is a rule-based thinker and everyone is working on being good and following the rules and being, a good compliant member of the community, then you're all thinking in the same way and you're all reinforcing each other's values. So there's not a lot of push to change. This is why they say international travel is really good for you, because you bump into people that you've never even run into a human being like that, right? And that tends to stimulate this need to grow and develop. So what we want to do is to have every adult on the planet be working on self-actualization and transcendence by the time they're 50. I mean, if you think about it, anybody that's an adult, imagine if you had this when you were a teenager. I mean, wouldn't that have been great?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would have saved me so much grief and anxiety, right? But we're going to be training adults. So I would say anybody that's got a question about, am I doing the right thing? Am I really fulfilling my life? If there's any anxiety about, if I die now, will I be okay with dying? Anybody that's thoughtful like that would totally love this. And I think anybody that is working on being successful and wondering why they are hitting the glass ceiling, it's because there are attainments that didn't get made earlier in your development that when you see them, you go, oh, of course. Now I can do something about it.
Once I got exactly what attainments I needed to get, there was just no confusion about it. It's just like, okay, let's do it. And then things move so quickly.
So the next seminar, that's happening on September 26th, and the link to find out more information will be in the show notes.